My name is Orsola de Castro and I'm co-founder and creative director of Fashion Revolution. My background actually a little bit like Alice. I was originally a fashion designer. I had my own upcycling label for nearly 20 years. And in 2006 I founded Aesthetica, the sustainable area at London Fashion Week for the British Fashion Council, which I curated until 2014. So what is Fashion Revolution? Fashion Revolution happened as a result of the Rana Plaza disaster in Bangladesh, which was catastrophic as it was predictable. In fact, only 3 years before there had been a horrendous fire, the Taz Green factory fire, again in Bangladesh. And one of the most tragic stories about the Rana Plaza disaster is not so much about the brands that knew that were producing there. It's about the brands that didn't know that they were producing there. So they woke up the next morning after 1,138 people died, and they actually called each other in their offices and said, were we producing there? This is really an indication of the broken links of the fashion supply chain. The fashion supply chain is incredibly complicated, as fashion really encompasses everything from agriculture all the way to communication. And we don't know who make our clothes. We are blissfully ignorant of their lives, in what conditions they work. We've lost such a rich culture over the last 35 years. The fashion industry is really relatively new if you compare it, for instance, to filmmaking or car manufacturing, and yet it's developed to be one of the most profitable and one of the biggest employers, as well as the second most polluting industry in the world. And it employs apparently directly or indirectly 1 in 6 of the population, 80% of which are female. Almost none of them are receiving a living wage. So what is Fashion Revolution? We look for transparency. We want to re-establish a connection between the people who wear clothes, and that is 100% of the population, unless we adopt the Adam and Eve, which I haven't seen happen. And we want to create connections between us and the people who wear the clothes, who make the clothes that we wear. There is a sense of having lost a culture once we exported most of this industry to developing countries, and also the fact that we have exported a skill without the dignity. And we at Fashion Revolution are all lovers of fashion. We are all people that have somehow grown up in this industry. We are academics, we are designers, we are consumers, we are celebrities, we are people that wear clothes and love clothes. And we would like to see an industry that is a force for good rather than a force of exploitation and misery. We believe very much in collaboration. We believe that in order to make a positive change, consumers, academics, people all over the world can take steps. I very much agree with Alice. There are ways of looking at things that we can do. One of the most interesting projects, sorry, I think I've got the wrong presentation, but that's okay. One of the most interesting projects that we did, we actually involved YouTubers, and we worked with people who, go on their YouTube channels, and they encourage millions and millions of followers to buy fast fashions. I don't know whether you've heard of them. They're called the haulers. In American it's pronounced the haulers. And they really do have millions of subscribers. And we created an initiative for them called the Alternative, in which we incited them precisely a little bit what you were saying before, to buy differently, enjoy fashion without buying. So to share, to swap, to mend, to really engage in a different way. So Fashion Revolution is now in 98 countries worldwide. We are a global movement. We ask a relatively simple question, which is, who made my clothes? And tragically enough, it's a really, really difficult question to answer. So when we started with this hashtag, we assumed that the majority of brands would know. And we actually discovered that the majority of brands don't know. We actually publish a transparency index. We're about to do the second edition this April, and we're looking at 100 brands. The majority of brands are blissfully unaware of where their clothes are produced. In fact, in many cases, the results are surprising. Often the high street is more aware than the luxury sector. So this is the campaign. You know, the campaign is going to people, making them feel a part of the solution, raising awareness towards these issues which affect us all because we all wear clothes. As a campaign, we've been very successful. We've galvanized celebrities, we've galvanized, you know, really students, we speak to young people, but most of all, I think what matters to us is that we've seen and heard from the producers. Last year alone, we had 3.5 thousand people from the actual supply chain answering the question, I made your clothes. And this is really providing for them a safer platform in which they can start to show who they are, and we can start to understand how they live. This year, we are doing a really interesting project called the Garment Worker Diaries. It's in collaboration with the microfinancing organization. And we are looking at the lives of garment workers in Bangladesh, in Cambodia, and in Bangalore. And we try to understand what it is that they spend their money on. We're trying to see and raise the case for a living wage. We're seeing how much debt they are in. We are seeing that they're spending money on medicals that they can't afford, on children's education that they can't afford, and really try to make this issue more recognizable, the need that we have to introduce proper wages when it comes to the people who make our clothes. And really, I don't really know that there is much more than I can say. I mean, I urge you all perhaps to go online and to follow what we do. This is very much a social media campaign. You know, if you're not on social media, blink and you have missed it. But at the same time, we are trying to raise a voice. We are trying to communicate in a way that it's pertinent to now. And this is our vehicle in many ways. And so in terms of our media success, our hashtag reached 195 million people last April. So that's a lot of people seeing that name and asking that question and actually becoming a little bit more sensitive to the lives of others when it comes to the clothes that we wear and the choices that we make every day, because we really don't want to boycott any brand. We just want, as we say at Fashion Revolution, people to be curious, find out, and do something. Because sometimes very small changes in the way that one thinks about the clothes that one buys can have a butterfly effect and reach much further afield than what potentially we think every day. Actually, this is a non-updated slide. We are now at 29 billion online media reach. Again, just to show that there is appetite, there is curiosity, there is a desire to look at a fashion industry in a different way, reappropriate cultural skills, rather like Alice mentioned, and you with your brand, Mareva. I actually believe that this is a cultural issue. I believe that we've been fed the wrong kind of fashion, and that we absolutely have the power to ask for it to change and to represent us better, represent the skills that we've all grown up with. I come from Venice. Very near Venice there is an island called Burano, which is famous for lace. There's no more lace making happening over there. So our indigenous culture is eroded, and yet what have we exported? You know, so many people say, oh, but at least we've brought jobs to developing countries. There is a word missing in there. It's the word good. We need to export good jobs. We need to ask for quality, not just in the products that we buy, but in the lives of the people who make them. Thank you.